Trump delays higher furniture tariffs, giving cabinets and vanities a one-year reprieve. As of January 1, 2026, the White House has delayed a scheduled jump in furniture, tariffs, and related home goods duties that were due to hit at the start of the year. The higher rates were aimed at certain upholstered furniture, plus kitchen cabinets and vanities, and they would have landed at the exact moment many households reset budgets and plan renovations. The tension is straightforward. Tariffs are supposed to protect domestic producers and supply chains, but they can also act like a quiet sales tax on everyday purchases. This delay buys time for talks. It also postpones a price shock that could have shown up quickly in showrooms, remodel quotes, and contractor bids. This piece translates the trade language into kitchen table outcomes: what gets cheaper relative to the original plan, what stays expensive, who benefits, who loses, and what the end of the delay could look like. The story turns on whether trade talks can deliver a political off-ramp before higher prices become unavoidable. Key points: the planned tariff increases on certain upholstered furniture, kitchen cabinets, and vanities have been delayed for 1 year, pushing the higher rates to January 1, 2027. The existing tariff level remains in place, meaning these goods do not become tariff-free. They simply avoid getting more expensive at the border right now. Relative to the original January 1 plan, cabinets and vanities see the biggest reprieve because their scheduled jump was much larger than the furniture increase. Households planning renovations, builders sourcing mid-range fittings, and retailers dependent on imports are the immediate winners from the delay. Domestic producers that backed higher protection and the government's potential tariff revenue from the higher rates are the main short-term losers. The real test arrives in late 2026. Either a negotiated outcome reduces the need for the hike, or the delayed increase returns as a sudden cost step up. Background: tariffs are import taxes. They are collected at the border, usually as a percentage of the declared customs value of the goods. In practice, they ripple through supply chains. Importers pay first, then try to recover costs through higher wholesale prices, tighter discounts, smaller product ranges, or price increases to consumers. The tariffs at issue sit under a national security framework rather than a conventional trade dispute model. That matters because it changes both the legal basis and the politics. Instead of targeting a single country or a narrow, unfair pricing claim, the policy is tied to the idea that over-reliance on imported timber, lumber, and wood-derived products can weaken critical industries and supply resilience. In late September 2025, the administration imposed a 25% tariff on certain upholstered furniture, kitchen cabinets, and vanities. A follow-on plan was set to raise those rates at the start of 2026. Upholstered furniture was scheduled to rise to 30%, while cabinets and vanities were scheduled to rise to 50%. On New Year's Eve, the administration delayed those higher rates for 1 year, citing ongoing negotiations. The result is a pause on escalation, not an end to the policy. The 25% tariff stays. Analysis: political and geopolitical dimensions. A tariff delay is rarely just about trade math. It is also about timing, leverage, and blame management. From the White House perspective, delaying a tariff hike can preserve negotiating leverage while lowering the near-term risk of visible price increases. Tariffs are easy to announce and hard to unwind without looking weak. A delay is a middle move. It signals that the policy remains in force, but it offers partners a window to bargain and domestic audiences a break from immediate sticker shock. For trade partners, the incentive is to use the delay as proof that pressure works while trying to prevent the higher rates from snapping back later. For exporters and foreign manufacturers, the delay reduces the urgency of reshoring and supply. Change shifts, at least temporarily, because the worst-case cost jump is not happening this week. Domestically, the politics are sharpened by where and how these products are bought. Sofas, cabinets, and vanities are not luxury curiosities. They show up when people move house, renovate, or replace broken essentials. Those are moments when price changes feel personal, not abstract. Economic and market impact. The simplest translation of the delay is this: Some home goods become less likely to rise in price in early 2026 than they would have under the original tariff schedule. That is not the same as becoming cheap. What gets cheaper relative to the original plan? A cabinet or vanity imported under a 25% tariff is meaningfully less burdened than the same item under a 50% tariff. That gap is large enough that importers would have had to react fast by repricing, cutting features, switching suppliers, or pushing customers toward fewer options. The delay removes the immediate need for those emergency adjustments. Upholstered furniture sees a smaller reprieve. Avoiding a move from 25% to 30% still helps, but it is a narrower margin. Retailers can sometimes absorb a few points through promotions or sourcing tweaks. A 25-point jump is harder to hide. What stays expensive? The 25% tariff remains in place, which means the underlying cost pressure does not vanish. Even with the delay, the border tax is still real, and it still influences the final price. Consumers may not see prices fall. The more realistic outcome is that some planned increases do not happen, and some threatened price hikes get postponed. There is also a second-order effect. Uncertainty itself has a cost. When businesses cannot forecast tariff rates with confidence, they hedge. They carry more inventory, diversify suppliers, or shorten order cycles. Those moves protect against policy whiplash, but they can raise operating costs. One more important backdrop is the wider inflation picture for household goods. When home furnishings inflation is already elevated, a tariff hike can feel like gasoline on a smoldering fire. A delay, even without repeal, can take the edge off the next round of price setting. Social and cultural fallout. A tariff story becomes a household story when it touches renovations and everyday spending decisions. In the real world, a cabinet and vanity purchase is often bundled into a larger project: a kitchen refit, a bathroom upgrade, a rental refresh, a new build finishing package. If tariffs raise the price of core components, the entire project can be scaled back. That tends to hit middle-income households hardest. High earners can absorb overruns, and low earners often postpone renovations entirely. The middle is where we can just about afford. This turns into we'll do it next year. The delay changes behavior. It may encourage some buyers to proceed with projects in 2026 rather than rush purchases in late 2025 or cancel them outright. But it can also extend a kind of waiting game. If the big hike is now scheduled for 2027, some households may plan to buy before the deadline, pulling demand forward again later. Technological and security implications. These tariffs sit under a national security frame tied to supply chains, not simply consumer protection. That framing pulls in questions that go beyond price tags. The administration's argument is that reliable access to wood products supports defense readiness, construction capacity, and broader economic resilience. Critics counter that applying pressure at the consumer end of the chain. Finished furniture and fixtures can distort markets without necessarily rebuilding upstream capacity fast enough. The delay highlights a practical constraint. Industrial policy works slowly. Even when tariffs encourage domestic production, factories and supply networks do not appear overnight. Labor, machinery, permits, and skilled manufacturing capacity take time. If the higher tariffs had hit immediately, the short-term effect would have been higher prices long before any domestic supply response could fully compensate. What most coverage misses, most tariff coverage treats the rate as the headline. The more revealing story is the gap between the rate and the retail price you actually pay. A tariff is applied to the customs value, not the final sticker price. Then it flows through freight, warehousing, wholesaling, retail margins, and installation costs. That means a 50% tariff does not automatically translate into 50% higher prices. But it can still produce a sharp and messy repricing cycle because businesses respond defensively. They reduce promotions, limit product lines, change materials, and renegotiate contracts. Consumers experience that as fewer choices and worse deals, not just a neat percentage increase. The second missed point is timing risk. By delaying the hike to January 1st, 2027, the policy creates a future cliff edge. That invites inventory behavior and demand distortions in late 2026, exactly the kind of artificial surge and squeeze cycle that makes prices jumpy and planning difficult for households and builders. Why this matters? In the short term, the delay reduces the odds of an immediate price step up in early 2026 for imported cabinets, vanities, and certain upholstered furniture. That matters for households planning moves, renovations, and replacements after the holidays. In the longer term, the story is about whether trade policy can meet two objectives at once: strengthen domestic supply chains while avoiding politically toxic increases in household costs. The delay effectively admits that the timing of price pressure matters as much as the principle of protection. Concrete things to watch next include any further presidential trade actions tied to wood products during 2026, signs of accelerated stockpiling by importers as 2027 approaches, and earnings commentary from home furnishing retailers and building suppliers in the first half of 2026 that reveals whether businesses are treating the delay as temporary relief or a reason to restructure sourcing. Real-world impact. A homeowner in Phoenix planning a kitchen remodel gets a revised quote that holds steady instead of rising. The contractor says the cabinet supplier is no longer rushing to reprice for a January tariff jump, so the project stays within budget. A small importer in New Jersey that supplies bathroom vanities to regional showrooms delays a planned price increase. The owner uses the extra year to renegotiate with suppliers and explore partial assembly in the United States, but keeps contingency clauses in contracts because 2027 is still on the calendar. A domestic furniture manufacturer in North Carolina feels whiplash. The company supported higher tariffs as protection against import competition, but now faces another year of pressure while it tries to justify investment in new equipment and hiring. A mid-sized home builder in Texas rebalances its purchasing plan. The firm locks in some supply agreements for 2026, but avoids long commitments because it expects late 2026 demand distortions if buyers try to get ahead of a possible 2027 price jump. What's next? The tariff delay changes the pacing, not the argument. The administration is still using tariffs as a tool for industrial policy and negotiation, leverage, but it is also signaling sensitivity to household price pressure. Over the next year, three paths are plausible. The first is a negotiated outcome that makes the higher rates unnecessary or politically easier to avoid. The second is a quiet extension, another delay, if talks drag on and price concerns remain acute. The third is a snap back. The higher tariffs arrive on January 1st, 2027, and the market scrambles again through repricing, inventory pulls, and fewer choices on shelves. The clearest sign of where the story is heading will be whether businesses treat 2027 as a real cliff. If importers begin stockpiling aggressively in mid to late 2026, or retailers start warning about pricing actions tied to the new deadline, the delay will look less like relief and more like a countdown. More insight, less noise. Explore the full range at taylortaylor.co.uk.